In section 3, we are still dealing with trigonometric ratios and trigonometric functions, but now we'll work on real numbers. So we'll generalize what we studied in section 2. شو شفنا section 2? شفنا we defined cosine as adjacent over hypotenuse. We defined sine as sine of an angle, of course, as opposite over hypotenuse and so on. لكن شو المشكلة؟ المشكلة هذم we defined them when in a triangle. شو المشكلة في التراينجل؟ المشكلة إنه الزاوية هذه شو نعرف عليها الزاوية هذه ثيتا؟ What do we know about an angle in a right triangle?
Acute triangle.
It's an acute angle. زاوية حادة. إذن this definition is limited to angles between 0 and 90 degrees. Okay? اللي عنده حاسبة هل ممكن يجرب لنا هل نقدر نحسب ساين مثلا 100 degrees؟ هل تحسبها الحاسبة هذه؟ Yes عمر.
ايه تحسبها.
إذا كيف تحسبها؟ واحنا القانون هذا قلنا في التراينجل يضبط فقط الزوايا بين 0 و 90. إذا كيف نحسبها هذه؟ This is what we will see in this section. How to compute sine 100, how to compute cosine 237, any angle. Okay? So we'll find the trigonometric value of any angle here. Okay? So we need other formula to compute these quantities. واضح our objective in this section? Okay, let's start. So here we have 4 different figures depending on the position of this point P. So we have a point in a Cartesian coordinate system with coordinates x and y. And we have 4 different figures depending whether the point is in Q1, the first quadrant, or Q2, the second, or Q3, the third, or Q4, the fourth quadrant. Okay, so this is 4 different cases depending on the position of the terminal side of the angle theta. Then here we'll have an angle theta, an acute angle being 0 90. This is an obtuse angle بما انه في Q2 يعني بين 90 وال 180. هنا in Q3 so the angle theta هذا راح يكون بين 180 درجة و 270. And in Q4 we'll have an angle theta between 270 degrees and 360. We'll start first with these 4 cases. Okay? So here are new formula for the 6 trigonometric ratios. This formula depends on the coordinates of a point on the terminal sides. Depends on x and y. القوانين اللي شفناهم في previous section هنا to compute cosine theta شو كنا نسويه؟ كنا ناخذ right triangle هذا مثلا وشو نقول؟ نقول it is the cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Then come adjacent. Adjacent is this length. When this length, it's x. What is the hypotenuse? This is the hypotenuse. Square root of x squared plus y squared. So this definition meets the old definition seen in previous section in right triangle. But with this definition is generalized to any points on the plane. Okay? So these are new formula لازم تحفظوها. Then x over square root of x squared plus y squared is cosine. The sine will be y over x squared plus y squared. And the tan is y over x. الثلاثة الباقيين you have just to take the reciprocal. So these are new formula to compute the trigonometric ratios. اللي شفناهم in section 2 are still valid. They are correct. But they are limited. Used only for acute angles. واضح الفرق؟ They are correct. But they are limited. These formula are more general. These formula are valid for any angle. Okay, خلينا نشوف مثال. Find cotangent and cosine of an angle theta. Cotangent theta and cosine theta. What we are given? So we are given, so this is the Cartesian coordinate. قال لنا theta, the terminal side, so it's in standard position. شو معناها؟ معناها the initial side على positive x-axis والterminal side وين؟ قال it passes through the point -1, -2. وين يجي -1, -2? In which quadrant? Quadrant 3, -1, -2. This is the point P. This is the angle theta. Okay? So how can we compute the cosine of this angle? We use the formula related to the coordinates, x and y. So the formula says that it's x over square root x squared plus y squared. So it's -1x over square root -1 square plus -2 square. So it's -1 over square root of 5. Okay? So, since we know we are given any point on the terminal side of an angle in standard position, we can use this formula. What about cotangent? What is the formula for cotangent? Cotangent is x over y. So it is -1 over -2. So it is 1/2. And we can compute any of the 6 trigonometric ratio for this angle using this formula. Cotangent is x over y, tan is y over x, sine is given by this formula. Okay? So it's important to know also these definitions of the trigonometric ratios. هنا نشوف the second question. هنا ايش اعطانا؟ اعطانا قالنا find tan 90 degrees by choosing a point in its terminal side. كيف راح نحسبها tan 90؟ منين نجيبوا terminal side؟ إذا خلينا نشوف نرسم الأنجل هذا ونشوف. إذا I draw the Cartesian system and I draw my angle 90 degrees in standard form. This is an angle of 90 degrees. Khalid, choose a point in its terminal side. Where no terminal side? This is the terminal side. Choose a point. Please choose a point on this side. Not even any point on this side.
0, 2.
0, 2. Okay. This is the point 0, 2. So this is x is 0, y is 2. This is correct because the terminal side is the positive y-axis. So any point on the y-axis and x0, where y must be positive. خلينا نحسبوا tan 90 degrees using this point. شو يقول لنا tan؟ التان هو y over x. تحفظوها تلقاوها y over x. إذا كم هنا؟ الواي ب 2 والx ب 0. So 2 over 0 is unfortunately undefined. So tan 90 degrees is undefined. Okay? لكن كيف عرفناها undefined? We applied the formula. We took a point on the terminal side and we applied the formula. So the point, it's whether given, sometimes it's given, sometimes they ask you to choose a point and to apply the formula. I recall, these are the formula. Tan is y over x. ممكن انتم حتى تعملوا analogy with the previous section. ممكن تقولوا الواي هي ترمز للopposite والاكس هي ترمز للadjacent حتى تسهلوا على حالكم ما تتلخبطوا. Usually to make the link with the previous formula قولوا الواي هي الopposite والاكس هي الadjacent. اوكي كده تربط the two formulas سهل عليك. Find tan 180 degrees by choosing a point on its terminal side. خلينا نرسمه 180 degrees هذه. So this is the coordinate system. 180 degrees is standard position. This is the initial side. It's a straight angle. هذه 180 degrees. قالك choose a point on the terminal side. أعطيني point على terminal side.
-1, 0.
-1, 0. So the terminal side هو negative x-axis. إذا tan 180 قلنا opposite على adjacent يعني y على x. يعني 0 over -1. كم هذه؟
0.
So we use the formula to find tan 180 degrees, and you can check with your calculator and you'll find that tan 180 is 0 and tan 90 is undefined. Find all trigonometric values of the angle theta whose terminal side passes through the point 1, -2. When you see 1, -2, 1, -2 يعني quadrant 4. This is the point 1, -2. We know the angle. This is the angle theta. In quadrant 4. Okay, so كيف نحسب؟ قلنا الكوساين هو adjacent يعني x over square root x square plus y square. يعني x is 1 over square root 1 square plus negative 2 square 1 over square root of 5. الساين هي الأوبوزيت يعني y over the square root يعني negative 2 over square root of 5. السك والكوسك the reciprocal negative square root of 5 over 2. السك هي square root of 5. التان opposite على adjacent y over x negative 2 over 1 يعني negative 2. الكوتان it's the reciprocal. And here are the 6 trigonometric functions given a point on the terminal side.
واضح.
نبي بس تعود تحفظ
واضح.
القانون وتطبق. هو مرتبط بالقانون القديم. قلنا في القانون القديم بس تاخذ الاوبوزيت y والادجacent تسميها x. اوكي والهايبوتنس هو دائما هذا الطول سكوير روت x سكوير بلس y سكوير. Then find sec of 180 degrees choosing a point on the terminal side. نرسم my coordinate system. I draw my angle in standard position. This is the initial side, 180 straight angle. So I need a point here on the terminal side. Give me any point on this
Minus
terminal
1 and
side.
0.
نعم.
Minus 1 and 0.
Minus 1, 0. So sec 180. sec هي مقلوب بالكوساين. So x تحت الادجacent وفوق the hypotenuse. So it's square root negative 1 square plus 0 square over negative 1. كم تعطيني 1 over negative 1. So it's negative 1. This is second of 180 degrees using the new formula related to the coordinate of a point on the terminal side. إذا شفنا we define, so since they are very important these trigonometric ratios, they got special care, special attention. So there are several definitions, several ways to define them. So شفنا definition 1 using right triangle. شفنا definition 2 using coordinates. هذه قلنا cosine theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. هنا قلنا cosine theta هي x over square root x square plus y square taking a point. This is the angle. This is a third definition. Using now the circles. استخدمنا right triangle, استخدمنا ال coordinates, ممكن نستخدم الcircle. In some references, cosine and sine are called circular functions. بعض الأحيان تلقاوها هذه إذا تقرأوا كتب إذا بعدين في الكلية يقول لك circular functions يرمز للكوساين والساين. ليش circular function? Because we can also define them using the circle. Especially if we take the unit circles. معناها unit circle. Unit circle معناها radius 1. معناها in this right triangle the hypotenuse is 1. معناها square root x square plus y square is 1. هذا من كل في المثال هذا يمثلوا نفس القيمة. إذا شو تصير الكوساين؟ قلنا الكوساين هي x على square root x square plus 1. لكن هذا 1. إذا شو يصير الكوساين؟ هو الx. إذا if we are given a point on the unit circle, لازم on the unit circle, we have directly the cosine and sine from the coordinates. So x هي الكوساين والy هي الساين. This is a special case. أكرر. إذا ما هو unit circle عندكم x على r، عندكم x على square root of x square plus y square. But in the unit circle we are directly given cosine and sine. Cosine theta هي x, the axis, and sine theta is the ordinate. In the unit circle, أكرر وأعيد. Not always, not in all cases. Only when the terminal, the point on the terminal side is on the unit circle. And we have this figure. مش مطلوب منكم تحفظوها، اطمنوا. اوكي؟ لكن بس نشوفها حتى نعرف انه هي موجودة ويستخدموها. إذا النقطة square root of 2 over 2 square root of 2 over 2 الموجودة على اليونت سيركل هي النقطة هذه. شو الزاوية؟
45.
الزاوية 45. اوكي؟ كم الكوساين of 45؟ هو هذا هو الاكس. كم الساين of 45؟ هو هذا الواي. اوكي، هذه مش مبينة لأنه نفس الكوساين والساين. هاي ناخذ النقطة هذه نيجاتيف 1 0. وين النيجاتيف 1 0؟
180.
This is negative 1 0. What is the angle in this case?
180.
180. What is the cosine of 180?
-1.
هي هذه cosine of 180. What is the sine of 180?
0.
What about this point? Negative half, negative the square root of 3 over 2. وينه هذا?
120,
This
I
point.
think. Oh, yeah. 240.
What is the angle here?
240.
240. Then what is cosine 240?
Half. Minus half.
It's negative half. What is sine 240?
Negative square root 3 over 2.
Negative square root of 3 over 2. So this is to tell you that these functions are also related to circles. And we can define them from circles. إذا نحن بدأنا أخذنا definition في الرايت triangle. في كتب أخرى في أساتذة آخرين يبدأوا when they introduce this function they use the circle. أوكي؟ ما تستغرب. ممكن تشوفوا فيديوهات على اليوتيوب متاع في آلاف الفيديوهات شوفوا when he defines trigonometric function يستخدم السيركل. It's also true. So there are at least 3 different ways to define the cosine and the sine, but all these 3 definitions are equivalent. They meet. Okay? So here the terminal side negative 3 0. وين يجي هذا negative 3 0? 1 2 3 negative 3 0. So what's the angle here?
180.
It's the angle 180. So here, what is the cosine 180? It's
Minus
x
1.
over
Minus
square
3.
root x square plus y square. So minus 3 over square root minus 3 square plus 0 square. So it's negative 1. Sine 180, it's y over square root x square plus y square. Y is 0 over here, so it's 0. Okay, tan 180, it's y over x 0 over -3, it's 0. Cotan 180, it's 1 over tan, it's
it's
1 over
undefined.
0, it's undefined. Cosec 180,
Yes, flip
it's
the
1
sign.
over sine 180, it's 1 over 0, it's also undefined. Now we'll be back to this when we'll study the domain of definition of this function. They are not defined for any angle. Sec 180 is 1 over cosine 180, the same angle. Sec theta here 1 over cosine theta, the same angle. 1 over -1 is negative. So these are special angle using this formula. And so we have this table for quadrantal angles. What are quadrantal angles? قلنا عندنا angles in quadrant 1, angles in quadrant 2, in quadrant 3, in quadrant 4. Here the angles are between 0 and 90. Here the angle are between 90 and 180. And so on. With special angle 0 is called quadrantal. It's not in any of this quadrant. 90 is quadrantal. معناها the terminal side is on the axis. These are called quadrantal. And these are the value of their trigonometric ratios. It's 1, 0, -1, and defined for some of them. So this is just to let you know it. So you have your calculator. So, but you saw how we find them. We can find them. This is a way to find them, taking a point on the terminal side. This is how we computed them first, okay? Before programming them on the calculator. Okay, we move now to what we call the reference angle. What does it mean, reference angle? How can we translate it?
الزاوية المرجعية.
زاوية مرجعية. شو المرجعية هذه؟ شو راح تساعدنا؟ So the reference angle alpha of any angle theta in standard position is defined to be, so this reference angle is an acute angle. So the reference angle must be between 0 and 90 degrees. That is formed by the terminal side of theta and the x-axis. What does it mean? So here, since we are in Q1, since theta is acute, so the reference angle is itself. If we are in quadrant 1, the reference angle alpha is the same as theta. Here, no problem. It's in acute already. What happens in Q2? In Q2, this is the angle theta. What's the reference angle of this angle? قلنا, it must be an acute angle and formed by the terminal side and the x-axis. So this is the reference angle. And it's important to relate these two angles. And then what is the relation between alpha and theta in this case? So in this case, if we take
They're equal to 180.
this angle, what's the measure of this angle?
180.
Is 180. So to find the blue angle, alpha, it's 180 minus theta. Okay? If we are given, if we want theta and we are given alpha, same thing. It's 180 minus alpha. This relation is valid in quadrant 2. Okay? Don't forget that alpha is an angle always between 0 and 90, called the reference angle. In Q3, this is the angle theta. So theta here is between 180 and 270. The reference angle, or the acute angle between the terminal side and the x-axis. So this is the reference angle in this case. How to compute it? What's the relation between alpha and theta in this case? إذا ناخذ this is the angle 180. Then شو تلاحظوا؟ تلاحظوا that the green plus the blue gives the
Hourly angle theta.
Gives the red. So theta here is 180
Plus the reference.
plus alpha. Okay? Or if you want, alpha is the red theta minus 180. It must be a positive angle. إذا هنا in Q2 theta أقل من 180 بين 90 و 180. So it's 180 minus theta. هنا العكس ثيتا أكبر من 180. إذا ناخذ ثيتا minus 180. Alpha هي reference angle. So for the moment we are defining it. راح نشوف في next slide ليش شو تصلح، ليش نحتاجها. Okay? For the moment we are just defining this concept of reference angle. شو راح نستخدمها؟ بعدين راح نشوف الفايدة منها. Okay? For the moment we are just defining it and linking it to the angle theta. We still have a fourth case when we are in Q4. So هنا alpha هي الزاوية هذه. قلنا هي دايما بين الاكس axis والتيرمينال سايد. إذا هذه زاوية ألفا بين الاكس axis والتيرمينال سايد. بين الاكس axis والتيرمينال سايد. هنا كيف نحسبها؟ هنا ناخذ لفة كاملة. لفة كاملة هي 360. إذا ألفا هي 360 minus theta. And theta هي 360 minus alpha. So these are the four cases. The four definition of the reference angle depending on the position of the terminal site. So find the reference angle alpha of the following angles. 30 degrees.
It's the same.
وين موجود 30 degrees?
In the first quadrant.
In Q1. So in Q1 we have no problem. Alpha هي نفسها theta هي نفسها 30. What about 250 degrees? وين موجودة 250 degrees?
In the third.
Let us draw it. 250 degrees. So 90, 180, 250. This is the angle 250. وين الألفا?
It's between the x-axis and the terminal.
الألفا هي هذه. إذا هنا الألفا هي theta minus 180. We are in Q3. So alpha here equal 70 degrees. نستخدم دايما الاكس axis يمين ولا يسار حسب. What about 300 degrees?
In the fourth.
300 degrees. So we start here, 90, 180, 270, 300 degrees. This is theta, 300 degrees. Where is alpha? Alpha here, هذه. Between the terminal side and the closest x-axis. Then how to compute alpha in this case?
360 minus 300.
Here we use the complete rotation. 360 minus theta. يعني هي 60 degrees. هذه الريفرنس angle. باقي البي والدي.
It's just
البي
radian.
والدي
That's
are
the
in
degree.
راديان. إذا كيف نسوي براديان؟ 2 باي over 3.
It's 120.
وين جي 2 باي over 3؟
120.
كم؟
120.
120. It's 120. يعني in which quadrant?
Second.
In second quadrant. This is theta 2 pi over 3. Where is alpha?
Between
This is
X.
How to find the value of alpha?
180 minus.
Here we use half rotation. Half rotation 180 degrees, but here since we are dealing with radian, it is in radian come?
120.
No, in radian. This angle in blue.
So,
pi.
yeah.
Pi.
So it's pi minus theta. So it's pi over 3. It's 60 degrees. What about D? 4 pi over 3. So pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 3 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3. So it's in Q3. So alpha is this angle. So here alpha will be theta minus pi.
4. Yeah.
Theta minus pi. This is pi. Pi plus alpha يعطينا theta. So here 4 pi over 3 minus pi. So pi over 3. What does it mean? It means that these two angles, they have the same reference angle. اللي هو pi alpha equal pi over 3. هذه الزاوية المرجعية له. So these are the rules to find the reference angle given the angle theta. It's theta if you are in Q1. It's 180 minus theta if you are in Q2. It's theta minus 180 if you are in Q3. And it's 360 minus theta if we are in Q4. So these relations are also important. هذا بالدجري. إذا عندنا الراديان we replace 180 by pi. With 360 by
2 pi.
2 pi. So we have theta in Q1, pi minus theta in Q2, theta minus pi in Q3, and 2 pi minus theta in Q4. This is the definition of the reference angle. So again, so 60.
60.
In which quadrant?
First.
In Q1. So here alpha equal theta equals 60. 160 in which quadrant?
Second.
In Q2. So here what is the relation? Alpha is
180 minus
180 minus theta. And 20 degrees. 330
fourth.
4.
It's in Q4. أكثر من 270 هي 330. هذه الزاوية حتى لهنا 130 in Q4. So what's alpha?
360 minus
Minus theta. So it's 30 degrees. So alpha is always in acute angle being 0 و90. 2 pi over 5 in which quadrant? And هذا Q1 2 pi over 5. So what's alpha? It's 2 pi over 5.
over 5.
7 pi over 6 وين موجود هذا؟ So هذا باي أكبر من باي. So 7 pi over 6. So it's in Q3. So what's alpha in this case?
باي الزاوية ناقص
Theta minus pi. 7 pi over 6 minus pi. So pi over 6. This is the reference angle.